In this channel, I usually translate Italian left-wing music, but today I wanted to do something different. In this series of videos, I will try to explain the evolution of Italian political history. Hopefully, it will help people to understand the political context of the translation I provide, and it will also clarify the origin of the dumpster fire we commonly call Italian politics. The videos will be divided in 4 parts. The first part is going to be early Italian politics from 1861 to 1915. Second part will be about the Red Biennium and the rise of fascism. The third part will be about the First Italian Republic, Gladio and the Years of Lead. The fourth part will be about modern day politics and the shortcomings of Italian politics. But first, a couple of words. I am not an historian. I study biomolecular biotechnologies, which means I basically study cells and small thingies like proteins and even smaller stuff like RNAs and amino acid, etc. But history is one of my passions, so I like to keep myself informed and share my knowledge about history. Also, English is not my first language, so expect horrible pronunciation throughout the videos, and I apologize in advance. This is also my first time creating a fully structured video, and I hope that it's going to be enjoyable and informative. Let's begin.
This is how Kraut opens his video, by slamming a stack of books onto his desk that includes Why Nations Fail and The Origins of Political Order. There's a lot of problems with his use of sources when it comes to history.
Because I'm a loyal follower of Fredda, who inspired me to make this video, every claim in this video will be source-based, and the sources will be either linked in the description or quoted to the page number. Also, because I'm more Freddist than even Fredda, I will also share the PDFs of books and documents that are unavailable to most people in the description, in order to be as transparent as possible. Furthermore, in order to be fully transparent, I will also translate on request the sources from Italian to English when the translation is unavailable or, Google Translate doesn't work. The sources will vary from books to journal articles to documents and websites depending on the claim being made and the source material I have currently available. Some claims will be unsourced because they are common knowledge, for example Italy joining the First World War. I will also try to source images, films and songs used for the videos in the description. Any eventual mistake, clarification or misquote will be corrected in the first comment, like I usually do for my translations.
Dopo la rivoluzione francese e l'impero di Napoleone, che fecero i sovrani radunati a Vienna? Dissero: giovanotti, dalla Bastiglia oggi non è successo niente. Se ritorna a Luigi XVI. E si rimisero le parrucche. Per cui annullarono tutto, la scienza, le scoperte, le invenzioni, tutto, meno che una cosa, la ghigliottina.
Italy was unified in 1861 under the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia. Since the north was tied to France and Germany economically, it managed to develop a relatively strong industrial base, while the south remained largely agrarian with little to no industry. To give you a couple of numbers, in the 1830s almost 90% of people in the south worked in the agrarian sector or in the fishing sector. As a result of strong regional and linguistic differences, the Italian monarchy tried to Piedmontize southern Italy, which meant that they imposed the administrative structure of the north upon the south, Piedmont, Sardinia, and to impose the Florentine language to all of Italy, which led to discrimination against southern Italians and generally a de facto open war against dialects and local languages, which is still very much in effect. Just to give you an idea, public television made it mandatory to use Florentine diction up until the 1990s. To this day, speaking a southern Italian dialect is considered to be almost like being ignorant, and southern Italian dialects, especially Napoletano, are used to adapt African American dialects and slangs in American movies. They are largely perceived in the same way.
Just hang loose, blood. She's gonna catch up on the rebound on the med side.
What it is, Big Mama? My mama didn't raise no dummies. I duck a rap.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
Say cutting things here when he say be doing everything.
Chomp don't wanna help, Chomp don't get there.
State tranquille, compà, che quella mo torna subito e ti porta tutto cose.
Ma che traduce che mia mamma mi ha mandato all'istituto berlistico linguistico?
Che cazzo dici, cioccolato?
Ma voi tenete ragione, signorina, ma questo non si sente bene, non capisce niente, sta ragione.
Che vi dico? Gli dovella pianculo, che è meglio.
The forced Italianization of the peninsula, alongside the fact that southern Italians were largely used as cheap labor for northern Italian industry, led to a de facto civil war that lasted from the 1860s all the way to 1880, and it was mostly made up of peasants, some anarchists or proto-anarchists, and monarchists in general. It was a very heterogeneous movement, and it saw the participation of many women who took up arms against northern Italian occupation. This period is commonly taught in Italian schools as the period of brigantaggio, which translates as the period of brigands, which was of course repressed with exceptional brutality. Italian politics in this period is characterized by three important political forces, which are the liberal center, which was divided between left and right, the Vatican, and the radical and extreme left, which was composed of Mazzinian Republicans, Socialists and Anarchists. Let's talk about them.
Voi siete i padroni, gli sfruttatori, noi invece siamo gli schiavi, i morti di fame.
Oh, ma caro Fantozzi, è solo questione di intendersi, di terminologia. Lei dice padroni e io datori di lavoro. Lei dice sfruttatori e io dico benestanti. Lei dice morti di fame e io classe meno abbiente. Ma per il resto la penso esattamente come lei. Come?
Like many liberal countries in this period, in Italy the liberal movement was divided between the left and the right, and to distinguish them from the modern day equivalent, I will call them historical left and the historical right. And the historical right represented the interests of the northern Italian bourgeoisie and generally advocated for trade liberalization in order to increase the imports of material for the metallurgic sector and the furthering industrialization of northern Italy, while the historical left, on the other hand, represented the interests of the southern agrarian aristocracy and advocated for protectionism in order to protect the southern Italian aristocracy and agrarian bourgeoisie from more competitive European markets. They also advocated for an expansion of the electoral body in order to expand the influence of the southern aristocracy and the landlord class, who were not as rich as the northern bourgeoisie, and therefore they were underrepresented in elections. Which is why the reforms enacted by the historical left expanded the electorate from 2% in 1866 to 7% in 1882. They also sought to copy Bismarck's model in order to ease class tensions, with little to no success. The right governed Italy from 1861 to 1876. After that, the historical left took over, and hopes of course were high in southern Italy because there was the belief that a pro-South government would represent the southern interests as a whole and not just the interest of the aristocracy. Which is why when the economic crisis of the 1880s hit southern Italy, the government immediately started imposing tariffs and protectionist measures to safeguard the interests of southern Italian landlords, while simultaneously worsening the condition of the average southern farmer. The economic crisis caused a violent uprising in Sicily in 1892, but I will talk about it in the next sections. This period was also characterized by a political tactic introduced by the Pretists called transformism, which was aimed at uniting the moderate members of the historical left and historical right via concessions in order to form coalitions and unite under a figurehead and a common program. This tactic would eventually lead to the union of the historical left and historical right into the Liberal Union of 1915.
Bruceremo le chiese e gli altari.
Perché la Repubblica, anche se sconfitta, è una conquista civile dalla quale non si torna indietro. Per questo, fratelli, dovremo batterci, tutti, fino all'ultimo uomo.
Su di me non ci contate.
Ha detto fino all'ultimo uomo, mica all'ultimo prete.
The influence of the Vatican and the Pope had been declining since the Middle Ages. The Pope was even briefly exiled during the short-lived Republican Revolution of Rome in 1848, which was crushed not by the papacy but by the French army. This led to some minor reforms, but it was too little too late, so the Papal States were conquered by the Kingdom of Italy 20 years later. The Vatican was already an anachronistic institution which could not find its place in the capitalist economy, and up until 1891 the official policy of the Vatican was to not recognize the new liberal order and protest and wait. The clergy lost its relevance and power, and the new liberal order was here to stay. They had to find a place for themselves in this new society, and so they did. They would play the role of the social pacificators of of class struggle. They would use Catholic doctrine to preserve the new liberal order, thereby making themselves necessary for the stability of the new order. So in 1891, Pope Leone XIII published Rerum Novarum, which translates to About New Things, a text that defines the stance of the Vatican on social and economic issues. This text, even if it was revisited in 1941, would define the politics of the First Italian Republic up until 1989. So, what does this text say? It acknowledges that the proletariat is suffering under capitalism and claims that greed is ruining society and societal relations. The Pope also declares that socialism is a false solution because it would damage the workers while upsetting the social order. Quoting the document,
"To remedy these disorders, the socialists, stirring up hatred of the rich and the poor, claim that property should be abolished and all individual patrimonies should be made a common patrimony to be administered by the municipality and the state. With this transformation of property from personal to collective, and with the equal distribution of profits and comforts among citizens, they believe that the evil is radically repaired. But this way, far from resolving disputes, only harms the workers themselves. It is also unjust for many reasons, since it tampers with the right of legitimate owners, alters the competences of the offices of the state, and disrupts the entire social order."
The Pope also recognizes private property as a natural and divine right, quoting the Ten Commandments as proof. He also identifies the patriarchal family as the untouchable unit of society and the father as the only figure allowed to take part to the productive process. So, what is the solution proposed by the Vatican to solve all of the problems of this new type of society? The proposed solution is to return to the system of corporazioni di arti e mestieri, medieval corporations. Only this system, adapted to modern times, would allow class collaboration and class harmony, allowing the workers to solve their grievances by acting via the corporation to find a peaceful solution that would be acceptable to both the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, all without upsetting the existing social order, of course.
Ma in merito a tutte queste rivendicazioni e a tutte le ingiustizie che ci sono, lei che cosa consiglierebbe di fare, Maestà?
Ecco, bisognerebbe che per ogni problema nuovo tutti gli uomini di buona volontà, come me e come lei, caro Fantozzi, cominciassero a incontrarsi senza violenze in una serie di civili e democratiche riunioni, fino a che non saremo tutti d'accordo.
Ma, mi scusi, Santità, ma in questo modo ci vorranno almeno 1000 anni.
Posso aspettare. Io.
Something that should be said is that the Fascist Party later adopted corporatism as the economic model that could theoretically achieve class collaboration and class harmony. Another thing the Vatican would use to influence the new social order is charity. The Pope recognized that poverty and misery was a feature of capitalism, but they didn't see this as something worth dealing with systematically, because, according to the Vatican, it was a chance to be charitable and perform good deeds to save the soul from eternal damnation. Also, this would provide the Vatican with a de facto monopoly on charity and would cement its role as social pacificator. With this in mind, it should come to no surprise that the Vatican supported the Liberal coalition in the elections of 1913 with the Gentiloni Pact, since in 1912 the election law was modified in order to grant voting rights to every adult male as a result of the political pressure coming from soldiers returning from the war in Libya. Liberals were risking a strong socialist-republican coalition. However, with the support and recognition given by the Vatican, the Liberal coalition could neutralize the joint socialist and republican threat, ensuring a victory in the elections. The Gentiloni Pact, in exchange of support from the Vatican, would ensure that the state would finance Catholic private schools, and it would not in any way attempt to abolish private schools, something that is still happening to this day, by the way. And the Italian kingdom would promise to never legalize divorce, and the clergy would have a separate jurisdiction. This compromise postponed the need to create a separate Catholic party, something that will come up again after the First World War, because of a renewed threat of a socialist revolution. When we talk about the extreme left in Italy, we mean in this specific period of history an amalgamation of different political movements. We basically go from radical Mazzinian Republicans, which are basically Republicans or left-wing Republicans, to socialists, social democrats, anarchists. I will try to talk about all of them with a particular focus on the Italian socialist and anarchist movement, because even though it remained relevant throughout the Italian kingdom, so up until the First Italian Republic in 1922, it had lost most of its notoriety and most of its support in favor of the Socialist Party. In 1861, the northern Italian proletariat was already organized in società operaie, meaning worker societies. Another way to call them is società di mutuo soccorso, meaning mutual aid societies, which were run by Republicans, both Mazzinians and moderate intellectuals, and anarchists and socialists of all stripes. Initially, these societies were mostly made out of artisans, intellectuals, and some charitable capitalists. This meant that initially worker societies sought to invest to create cooperatives and charity houses, and generally their intent was to turn the average worker into a bourgeois in order to deal with the widespread poverty without upsetting the new liberal order. Which is why, for example, every worker society initially had stocks, just like any industry. And this, alongside the influence of Mazzinian ideals of class collaboration to achieve Republican class harmony, made the initial worker societies unfit to represent the working class. So, when the workers started joining worker societies, and with the spreading of anarchist and socialist ideas, cooperation between radical and moderate forces became unfeasible. So when radical Republicans adopted the Brotherhood Act at the 12th Congress of Worker Societies, condemning strikes and class struggle in favor of class collaboration, socialists and anarchists started forming their own worker societies, distinct from Republicans and moderate worker societies. However, worker society activities never extended past the single factory or the single city complex, and despite the numerous attempts at creating a unified party, they would only achieve unity after 1892 with the creation of the Italian Workers' Party, later called Italian Socialist Party. In the 1880s, following an economic crisis, the cost of living skyrocketed, and this caused many workers to organize in so-called fasci dei lavoratori, or workers' fascis, the first being in Messina in May 1st, 1891. It's worth noting that the word fasci has nothing to do with fascism in this particular period. At the time, the symbol of the fascio littorio was associated not with reaction but with revolution, and especially with the French Revolution. A bad harvest in 1893 caused massive demonstrations in Sicily and in the south. These protests were brutally repressed by the Italian army, which killed tens of people between December of 1893 and January of 1894. January the 3rd, the government declared a state of siege for the entirety of Sicily and launched several police and army assaults in the island in order to restore order and disband the fasci. The situation did not come to be only because of the disparity of wealth between North and South, the economic crisis, and also exploitation, but also because the historical left, by breaking down the properties of the church, favored the existing agrarian aristocracy and landowner class. Raimondo Catanzaro writes,
"In the latifundia of central western Sicily there was no, or was very small, class of pure wage earners or mere labourers, since they were employed only in the periods of the year dedicated to sowing and harvesting wheat. Furthermore, wages were low because, due to the system of taxes and subleasing, those who paid them were often farmers themselves and, therefore, poor. Both of these conditions, accompanied by the fact that often a good part of the wage was paid in kind, gave rise to a series of mixed figures in which the ownership or rental of small portions of land was accompanied by salaried work activities."
In fact, another police report claims that
the principle of allowing women to enter the class struggle is advocated by various Congress members and everyone agrees. It is decided to make warm recommendations to the various groups to include women in the association.
the role of women was prominent enough to even appear in police reports, which claimed that
the peasant woman forgets her traditional modesty and her measurement, taking part in the current class struggle and showing herself willing to enter the field of action as well.
One of the reasons why the Sicilian uprising didn't succeed is that it never gained a fully fledged class character, and it remained isolated in the south despite receiving support from northern Italian revolutionary leagues and worker societies. Although it's important to mention that it did see some elements of local collectivization and that it took exceptional brutality from the Italian army and Italian police to crush the uprising. The violent repression of the workers' strike in southern Italy was not just as a result of imposing bourgeois and landlord dominance in the region, but also a result of ethnic hatred towards southern Italians. Just to give an idea, Italian journal Il Corriere della Sera wrote in December 19th, 1893.
The Sicilian question is not only social and economic, but also and especially ethnic.
Despite the violent repression of organized labor, the continued police raid, and the initial isolation of revolutionary leagues and worker societies, the socialist movement regrouped and managed to unite various radical labor leagues and worker organizations to form the Italian Socialist Workers' Party, later named Socialist Party of Italy, in 1892. The party maintained a strong anarchist component and a small group of radical Republicans. The Mazzinians, on the other side, formed the Italian Republican Party, and other Republicans formed the Italian Radical Party. Some anarchists did not initially join the Italian Socialists and found separate organizations such as the short-lived Italian Revolutionary Socialist Anarchist Party, which was later absorbed by the Socialist Party of Italy a year after its creation in 1893, and the Italian Syndicalist Union in 1912, which still exists to this day. Nonetheless, even if they were politically overshadowed by the Italian Socialist Party, the anarchist movement was still seen as a threat by the Italian monarchy. Italian anarchists carried out many political assassinations, the most famous of which were the attempted assassination of Italian King Umberto I in 1878 by Lucano Passannante, Sante Caserio's assassination of French President Carnot in 1894, the attempted assassination of Italian Prime Minister Francesco Crispi in 1894, another attempt to Umberto I's life by Pietro Acciarito in 1897, and Luigi Luccherini assassination of Elisabetta of Bavaria, Empress of Austria-Hungary, in 1898. In response, European Republicans and monarchists organized the Anti-Anarchist International Conference in Rome in 1898, which aimed to destroy the anarchist movement. Nonetheless, this conference was largely a failure, and the repressive measures enacted to deal with anarchist organizations failed to stop the Italian anarchist movement, and in 1900, Gaetano Bresci managed to shoot and kill King Umberto I. Throughout its history, the Socialist Party of Italy, despite being extremely heterogeneous, because it maintained a socialist, social democratic, Republicans, and even anarchist element, was still coherent, and throughout its history maintained a strong anti-militarist and strong internationalist stance. They opposed the war in Libya and the invasion of Ethiopia. In fact, in 1914, the Socialist Party of Italy declared a general strike against the war. The workers started to arm themselves by storming police stations, military bases, military camps, therefore threatening to topple the Italian monarchy and establish a republic. Famous Italian anarchist Enrico Malatesta writes on the anarchist journal Volontà.
We do not yet know whether we will win, but it is certain that the revolution has broken out and is spreading. Romagna is in flames. Throughout the region from Terni to Ancona, the people are masters of the situation. In Rome, the government is forced to keep itself on the defensive against a popular assault. The Quirinale has escaped, for now, invasions of the insurgent masses, but it is still threatened. In Parma, Milan, Turin, Florence, Naples, there are agitations and conflict, and from all sides news is arriving, uncertain, contradictory, but which all demonstrate that the movement is general and that the government cannot remedy it. And everywhere we see Republicans, Socialists, trade unionists, and anarchists acting in beautiful harmony. The monarchy is doomed. It will fall today, or it'll fall tomorrow, but it will surely fall soon.
Unfortunately, this prophecy was not destined to come true. The army and police acted with exceptional violence, massacring the protesters and reestablishing order. In 1915, the Socialist Party of Italy expelled the interventionist wing represented by Mussolini, and they continued to organize and to agitate throughout the entirety of the First World War. Mussolini, after being kicked out of the party, received monthly funding from both the French government, the Belgian and French Socialist parties, and from Italian industrialists in order to make a new journal and spout pro-war propaganda. Not only that, but he came to form a proper interventionist militia by the name of Fasci di Azione Rivoluzionaria, or Fasces of Revolutionary Action, in 1915, with an amalgamation of eclectic corporativist and national syndicalist views, modeled after Sorel and Murat. This movement is largely seen as the precursor of the fascist movement in the first post-war years. So, to sum it all up, right now the four political actors are the Liberal Union, which represents liberals, the Vatican, the Socialists, and a newly born Italian fascist movement. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it wasn't too superficial, but I wanted to give you like... As you can tell, this isn't scripted, so I don't really have anything to read for this part. I hope it wasn't too boring or too superficial, because I've been told that it was kinda superficial, but I wanted to, you know, make it accessible to everyone and not incredibly long. But anyway, if you have some curiosity or any doubt, I'm here. You can request that I can make another video. You can request another video from me on specific topics. The sources will be in the description, alongside the PDFs of books and articles that aren't available to the public. Also, I would like to thank all the wonderful people who helped me by recording the quotes. Remist Studio, who recorded the quote from the Vatican. Confessorizzu, who recorded the quote from Raimondo Catanzaro. The comrades at Anakbayan Abdiliman, yes, really, they are fucking amazing. They recorded the quotes from the police reports on the fasci siciliani. I'm really tired. By Talikma, who recorded the quote from Malatesta. Nidar, who recorded the almost racist quote from Il Corriere. I would also like to thank Unlearning Economics and Fredda for inspiring me to make these videos. As if you follow their channels, you will notice that I basically copied or attempted to copy Fredda's style of editing, while of course adding my own touch, because everything in this video was very Italian themed. And I stole the idea of making my subscribers read some quotes from Unlearning Economics. So check these guys out, and also the Leftist Hub for providing moral support and so many people that could record lines. Join my Discord server, join my Patreon if you want to support me, not support me, but finance me in order to buy other books that I can read and scan and share on the internet to make culture freely available to everyone. And for any question, I'm here, or in my Discord, or you can contact me in my Discord or in the comment section. I don't really mind. Any correction, as I already said, is going to be on the pinned comment, first comment. And yeah, this was my first properly structured video, so I'm not sure it came out as well as it could have, but I'm relatively happy with the result. Merry Christmas, everyone.